Sure, and we're live.
Oh, no, sorry. Oh, yeah, I have to do that too, don't I? Okay, we are now live.
All right, good evening, everybody. It is 7:31 on Wednesday, December 11th. This is the regular monthly Cultural Arts Commission meeting. I'm the chair, Daniel B. Smith, and I'm going to kick things off, as I sometimes do, by doing a quick roll call, starting with Marlo.
Present.
And then Tim is not able to join us, so Alicia.
Present.
And then Monique.
Present.
And Matthew.
Present.
And I am also present. We do have a quorum. We have a couple of things here. First up, approving the minutes from the November 13th, 2024 meeting. Can I get a motion to approve, or does anybody have any discussion of the minutes?
Motion to approve.
Thank you, Marlo. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Matthew. I will now do another roll call vote, starting with Marlo.
Approve.
And then Alicia.
Approve.
And then Monique.
Approve.
And Matthew.
Approve.
Great, and I shall also approve passing the November 13th minutes unanimously. Up next is our section for public comment. We haven't had much public comment for a while. I know, Porter, you mentioned there's nobody online, and I am not seeing anybody in the vicinity. If you're hiding, please say something.
I always look around.
Yeah, so one of these days we'll have someone behind a pillar who will pop out. Hearing none. We have a couple of regular agenda items, starting with number 1, which is receiving an unmistakable identity update and name change from the Parks, Recreation, Arts, and Culture Director, our good friend Porter.
You want me to advance?
Oh, no, I'll take the mouse. It's just a click, so hopefully I won't have to move it too much. Well, thank you, everybody. My name is Luis Ruiz. I am the Director of Parks, Recreation, Art, and Culture Department, and I am here today to present a dual purpose or a presentation that we're going to be making to the commission next Tuesday. As part of a routine, commitment champions, if you're familiar with the city strategic plan, we have outcomes and we have commitments, and both outcome and commitment champions, which I am for Unmistakable Identity, present to the commission and give them an update. So next week, we're going to give them an update of Unmistakable Identity, the Parks and Recreation Department, and through a lens of cultural lens, right? So I'll go through some of the information here. Porter, I'll turn it over to him to talk about specifically art and culture in Lawrence, its history and what we're currently doing and how we're integrating it. And then we'll move over to our proposed name change, which I will say has gotten support by the Parks and Rec Board at Monday's meeting, just a couple of days ago. So our intent is to run it by both of our serving boards to get a recommendation for them to be able to approve that next week, if you so agree. Okay? So that being said, as I mentioned, we are Parks, Recreation, Art, and Culture, primarily the ones responsible at the outcome level for Unmistakable Identity. Well, let me go over this. I forget this agenda is here. So we're going to talk about strategic plan, Unmistakable Identity, how we fit into the city's strategic plan, and the commitments. We'll go over culture, as I mentioned. We'll talk a little bit about the master plan, not too much. That is forthcoming, and you guys will talk about that later on.
Louis, sorry, I just realized I didn't share. Except, Kurt, are you handling that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
He's got it.
And then talk about our proposed name change. There's a spoiler alert right here that we're saying that what we'd like for it to be. We'll talk a little bit about background, where we are now, what's in code, and what our request is going to be of the commission at next week's meeting, and then we'll open it up for any questions that you guys may have or any suggestions. All right, so as I mentioned earlier, we are, as a Parks and Recreation, Art and Culture Department, primarily the ones responsible for the outcome of Unmistakable Identity. We have, as a strategic plan for the city, 5 outcomes. One is Unmistakable Identity, strong and welcoming neighborhoods, safe and secure, city in general, prosperity and economic security, and connected city. So these 5 commitments are sort of what the city feels we do, and this is what we want to provide. Each of these have corresponding commitments, which is how we do it, how city employees deliver the services that are set out in our outcomes. So while unmistakable identity is an outcome, it intersects with these commitments, and I'll go over that in a minute. But briefly stating here, what unmistakable identity is as an outcome is that Lawrence is a welcoming community synonymous with arts, diverse culture, fun, and a quintessential downtown. Our city parks and community events contribute to the vibrancy experienced by all in Lawrence. And I specifically highlighted those words within that very high level but direct definition of unmistakable identity, because it does play a big role. So this next slide basically talks about what we call the crosswalk. So as I mentioned earlier, each of our outcomes, and we're talking about unmistakable identity here, has corresponding responsibilities to those outcomes. And what I've done is that I've highlighted those that touch our culture in the light blue here. So you can see there are, out of 6 commitments, we touch 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 areas where culture intersects with our deliverables and how we do things in the city. And the way we do that, or the way we measure that, is through our key performance indicators, of which we have 14. And as I mentioned, 7 of those 14 deal with culture, art and culture, if you will. And this is basically how those, this is not the new one, I have a new one. Okay, so what I will go back and say, yeah. So if you can, so for instance, in number 2 here, where we're saying community engagement, what we're measuring is a percentage of residents. Can you read that, please? Because I can't.
Percent of residents who are satisfied or very satisfied with the amount of arts, cultural opportunities, and related events.
Right. So those are one of our key measures, and for this we do the surveying ETC, which might change this year as we go into new ways of surveying our services. But we're surveying the community to see what their sentiment is and what that changes over time. And then, I'll just pick another one. So let's talk about environmental sustainability and number 13. What does that read down here?
Number of events and programs that celebrate and enhance area environmental sustainability.
So that's how we're intersecting with environmental sustainability. The same thing would fall within equity and inclusion. How many events are celebrating your culture and things like that. So these are the things we're attempting to measure as we deliver our services, and how we interact with what the commitments that the city has made within our outcome of unmistakable identity. So again, this is going to be updated for the commission. Those questions we just went over, that's what's going to be here instead of these generic bullets. So I don't think we got to that today. So this is where I turn it over to Porter. We're going to talk a little bit about culture in Lawrence, and again, what the sentiment is and where we are and where we hope to bring this as we integrate art and culture into our department.
So some of you are familiar. This is from the cultural plan, which is when I started as Director of Arts and Culture back in 2015. And it's one, at the time, it was really interesting how, if you read the question, which arts, culture, and heritage sites are important for Lawrence to offer, whether you go or not. So this is people that, whether you're a participant in arts and culture or not, what's your sensibility about arts and culture in our town? And this reflects what I heard when I first got here, which everybody's like, oh, Lawrence is an arts town. And it was actually to the point where nobody could really explain to me what that meant, but everybody knew it. So it's like, okay. So this kind of helps define it a little bit more. What's great is that you can see that everything is above half. So everything hit 2.5 out of 4. And of course, so 23 items total, everything is scored above 2.5, and 18 of 23 scored above 3. So that just indicates, everybody's tuned into this, everybody sees the value for our community. This also is reflected in recent surveying we did for the master plan. So I see this regularly, so I believe it. It's true. Okay, next. The other thing is, you know, just talking about and reminding people about the legacy of arts and culture in this town. When I arrived and started researching all this, you know, it really seemed like something got in the water in the 1970s, and suddenly there was this renaissance of activity. The Cultural Arts Commission was established. The Lawrence Arts Center was started at the Carnegie Building. Lawrence Community Theater, which became Theater Lawrence, was started in 1977. 1986, which actually is pretty visionary for a relatively small town to have a public art policy. As weak as it may be, at least somebody was thinking along those lines. And that relates actually to the sculpture out front, which the plaque reflects that was a community effort to put that out there. And then, of course, 1986 was also the Outdoor Downtown Sculpture Exhibition was established with James Patty, who was a mentee, if you will, of Eldon Teft. Eldon was really significant in sculpture at that time in the country and actually established what is now the International Sculpture Center, which is pretty amazing that started here in Lawrence because of his efforts and passion. 1991 or 1986 was the downtown, that one. And then Community Arts Grant Program was established in 1991. I went back and looked into all of that as best I could. Some of the research is gappy. But basically what I found conservatively is that there have been 240 grants awarded for a total of about $339,000 in grants over that time. And of course, recently has been higher than ever before. It was like $6,000 for many years. The Phoenix Awards were established in 1996, and we currently have 155 Phoenix Award winners with 20 artworks created by local artists. The Lawrence Arts Center had the new building opened in 2002. 2010, Final Fridays was established, still going strong, kind of evolving in its own way, which is great. Theater Lawrence opened their new building in Bower Farms Drive in 2013. This body worked on the mural review criteria with Dave Lowenstein and really made a very solid policy. The cultural plan was approved in 2015, 2016. And received by the City Commission. In 2017, we did the Arts and Economic Prosperity Study, which entailed, I don't know if anybody here did that, but the art commissioners stood outside of events with clipboards and took a lot of surveys. It was a big effort and gave us a lot of good information, which seems to be reflected in the recent version of that. So, and then of course we received that $150,000 NEA grant post-COVID for COVID recovery for 17 arts groups. So good stuff. So, you know, it's actually intriguing having been an arts professional all these years and looking at the definition of culture, which technically encompasses arts and all these different things. We maybe improperly have used arts and culture redundantly. We've all been trained that way, in part because everybody has a different vocabulary skill related to arts and sculpture and all those types of things. So not a bad thing, but really kind of reaffirms that culture is the right word. So, and we know that culture strengthens the impact of our Parks and Recreation Department by creating a more integrated, culturally vibrant environment for the community. Cultural spaces and parks as gathering spaces for festivals, public art, and performances, which we certainly do a lot of here. Recreation as cultural engagement, events that combine physical activity with cultural expression, dance programs, sports, all those different things. Collaborative partnerships, supporting community groups through joint initiatives with UI partners and grant recipients.
And UI is Unmistakable Identity. I'm sorry, I don't want to.
And we do have UI partners, we have formal partners that are established as part of the key performance indicators, which is the Art Center, Theater Lawrence, the library. And then assuming an industry leadership position, so when I came on board in 2023, I was thrilled to be back in the arts, frankly. And then I went to the Kansas Recreation and Parks Association conference in Wichita. And it's funny because my career started in Parks and Recreation in St. Louis back I was in my 30s. But I worked at a sculpture park, so it was dedicated to arts. And what I saw back then, though, working in Parks and Recreation, is that Parks and Recreation always has an affinity to the arts, but it's sometimes not really done with real intention for various reasons. I don't mean that critically. It's just like I see it talked a lot about under the context of Parks and Recreation, but implemented less. And then actually Luis went to the National Recreation and Parks Association conference, and another friend of mine went as well. And while they have some great articles about the value of arts and culture in Parks and Recreation, how much arts and culture related sessions did they have? Zero.
Yeah.
So it's just an interesting anomaly. So I said, let me put together a panel and get other Kansas recreation programs that are proactively doing arts and culture to join me. I talked to each of them. They were thrilled to have a platform. So it was reassuring to me, like, okay, I'm on the right track. They have the same complaint. Johnson County has incredible arts and culture programming, going all the way to culinary arts in their Parks and Rec. So that'll be a good session, and it puts us in a leadership position, which I hope will build a coalition of people that are interested in the topic, and that they now have resources to get information and even advocate for them. So I'm excited about that. And then I also talked to Nick Carswell, since we did the music survey, to bring that as well and show our commitment and partnership with the state Kansas Arts Commission as well. So that'll be a good session just to explore, music through the Parks and Rec lens as well.
Okay, so this kind of veers off a little bit of what we're talking about, but I wanted to tie this into our master plan, which will be hopefully ready for public distribution and presentation January 13th to the board and commission, and then the following week to the actual commission. So we'll want to present it to you so that you have a good understanding and grasp of what's in there before we take it to the commissioners for receiving, if you will. So the things that you'll find in there, and again, the master plan is a 10-year plan. A lot of these things will take some time to develop, whether it's funding for additional grant programs, and and we're going to have to, as we receive this master plan, we're going to have to recognize that the city is going to go through some budgetary struggles over the next few years, and we may not be able to, jump right into everything, but we want to recognize what the content is and do those things that we can do and achieve in the meantime. But here's a basic list of what you'll find in that, in the arts portion of the master plan. And some definite deliverables through a matrix that explains what the priorities, who should be doing what, in moving art and culture forward within the city. So here's just a few of those things. But again, our plan is to be able to bring this to the board sometime in early January. And we have a proposed date at this point, which you'll know by the end of the meeting. All right, so here's a little bit of the background of the name of Parks and Recreation. So the Lawrence Recreation Commission was terminated by ordinance in 1965, and Roger brought up some tidbit of information that happens to be the same year of some, I think, Conservation Act that that kind of relinquished the ability for school boards who were often holding the commission positions from owning, I don't know. That came in just because I couldn't explain what this gap of time between 1979 and 1965, but he said there is this time where that was no longer allowed, and it was turned over from the schools to districts or commission or things of that nature. So since 1979, we've been officially in the city code known as Lawrence Parks and Recreation Department, LPRD. That name still sticks to many people's tongues still, even though since 2022 we've been operating informally under Parks, Recreation, Art, and Culture. So, and during that time, I guess, they had established that they wanted to, really have a presence in that. And then in 2023 is when they re-engaged Porter into the position and moved him over to to the Parks Department. So now, currently, we're served by two boards, as I mentioned, the Parks Recreation Advisory Board and the Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission. So we're already doing the function that our name, our informal name suggests, but we don't have a formal name. So there's still a lot of confusion, even within employees. Again, the name was never really adopted or codified, so it's just some people LPRD, some people, will call it PRAC or whatever. So what we're trying to do is create an identity for the department, and one that supports everything that we're doing, not only as standalone for art and culture, but integrated in what our department does every day. And so that's what the proposed name change is Lawrence Parks Recreation and Culture Department, PRC for short, which plays well with parks. Not that we want to negate culture or recreation, but that's often where people's minds go when you're talking about a department of our sort. So again, the reasons that we feel that, I don't know what happened here, but that culture is the appropriate name is that we feel that it incorporates arts, it incorporates heritage, it incorporates tradition, it incorporates any programming or support that we do in the arts community under one term without calling any one of those things out. I think it also in some way eliminate some of the confusion. What exactly are you doing in the arts? Because we have arts organizations that are specifically, mission-driven to do those things. So we believe that by having the name, the word in the name, it strengthens the Lawrence's support for the arts, that it also impacts how we present ourselves as an unmistakable in our unmistakable identity, saying that community, part of our culture is culture. And then we believe that the word still celebrates Lawrence's heritage and allows us to move forward with, offering innovative and inclusive programming that supports our position for diversity and equity. So, as of the 9th, which was Monday, the Parks and Advisory Board unanimously voted to recommend the name to the commission, and this is what we're asking of the commission, to give us direction in renaming to Parks, Recreation, and Culture, and to authorize that to adopt it now for public use, and then come back to them with whatever drafts, whatever changes need to be made to the ordinances, which happens quarterly is my understanding. So probably by end of first quarter next year, we would want to analyze anything that where Parks Rec LPRD is mentioned, and start to change the name in those, bring it back for adoption by the commission, and then we would be officially named PRC. So that is pretty much it. And again, what we're asking of you today is to discuss and consider recommending the name change to the commission for next week's meeting.
I like the name. I had a question. Your title, will it stay Arts and Culture?
Yeah, it would. I thought about that. I
Yeah.
think so.
I like
It's
that.
not really, technically my title is assistant director.
And then we
But
name
then
it
I
after that.
add I just always include arts and culture to give
Yeah.
context, but
Yeah.
like Lindsay doesn't say I'm the recreation person. So anyway, so I'll probably use that as a informal way, so we
I
won't
like
drop
that.
it that way.
Yeah, and I like us being arts and culture here for this body, and it gives
Exactly.
specificity to our role.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree with that. That's exactly what I was going to say. DLB Smith, I don't personally have a problem with it being a little bit redundant, arts and culture. I think it serves like this body relatively well, just like clarifying thing. But obviously, if you're going to choose one of the two words, culture is the more all-encompassing. And Parks, Recreation, Arts, and Culture is just too much.
It doesn't flow.
Yeah. So, and I think that that's a worthwhile justification for, I mean, it's something you're going to say probably 100 times a day, and I don't
Right
want
now,
to.
you don't know what to say.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm curious if other folks have input, but I personally am totally fine with the recommendation.
I feel pretty good about it. I agree with you. It kind of encompasses it all. I mean,
I do not disagree with anything anyone said, but I don't think I had anything new to add. I think it's perfectly fine.
So you want to be Parks, Recreation, and Culture? I don't know why I feel like the word art is more important than the word recreation.
Oh, that won't happen. Half our staff is recreation professionals.
What does that mean? Like,
Those are the people who program. They decide what programs are offered, what sports. They have studied recreation, not parks. Parks is the maintenance of an operation of the physical part. The recreation are the ones that
Put those
do
in
what
play.
happens either in
Okay.
sports pavilion,
so
gymnastics.
you're wanting
they're
to name
recreation.
all of the spaces
Well, the spaces where we,
that
where,
you're
yeah, that,
highlighting, basically.
yeah, exactly, but integrate them into the name, right? Right now, we're doing, Parks and Rec is pretty integrated.
Yeah.
You may not, there's kind of a little bit of tension, because they, recs people and parks, they depend on each other, but often you'll say parks, and the rec people are all upset. They're like, we're not parks, we're the rec part of Parks and Rec. So what we're trying to do is saying, and we also have special events professionals, we have, art and culture grant makers, and, that we want to make sure that that's captured. So, and I didn't mean to respond so quickly about but if I wanted to make sure it wasn't on public record too long, because
No, yes.
they would say, what?
I like to ask questions.
So,
before
no,
I
It's
can have
actually a really good question.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, absolutely fair,
Yeah.
but, yeah.
I don't know. I think the word art is important because culture can be so diverse in the way that you use it, and it is separate from arts to an extent. But I don't know. Whatever works best for you.
Denby Smith, I'll say it's tricky because I do feel like the word art has, I mean, when you're discussing the work of the department, and especially, the stuff that we focus on and talk about in this body, it's really useful to say art because, I mean, it's just really, it really gets to the point for a lot of people. A lot of people, if you lead with culture and don't say art, they might.
Kind of like when recs get upset that parks are being mentioned. I think because this is such a heavy art community, and there's so many specific grants for art, and there are specific programs for artists and entrepreneurs in that space. I don't know why, I just feel like I should say that word arts is just as important as recreation.
Yeah, I'll say for my part, I would be more hesitant if we were taking the art out of Cultural Arts Commission and Porter was no longer using the word art in his title, and like the community arts grants, if we were changing those to the community culture grants, I feel like retaining art in a lot of the names of the others, the stuff that we do helps make it clear that,
That's good.
so it's not entirely getting lost, but I do agree
So
with you.
just like the main header would just be real quick to say, and then have
Yeah,
that in language elsewhere.
I mean, even,
But exactly, when I mentioned that his position, I felt that, yeah, it's critical that we keep that. That is it's a function, it's just not the department name, right? Municipal Services Organization Municipal Services and Operations does solid waste, and they do, so they don't necessarily list everything.
Right.
But I totally understand, and maybe the story that we will be charged in telling is how art is part of our culture and part of our department, so that it just makes us
Yeah.
make that point a little
Paint the
bit more.
picture more clearly.
Right, so not so exclusive.
Interesting, just to add to this, I keep thinking of, are you all familiar with Laurie Anderson, the great performance artist?
Yes.
One of my favorites. She, one of her great songs during Home of the Brave was Language is a Virus. And it's really very true that, we forget that language is a tool that we use to communicate with each other, share ideas, but then we get stuck on words. And I don't mean this critically by any means, but it was interesting talking to Nick Carswell when we did the music census and realizing I've been in arts and culture my whole career. Often music gets left out, so you have to kind of, put it in there. That's why I like culture. And when I went back to the actual definition of culture, it really is all encompassing. And I think from a departmental perspective, even looking at what Louise had laid out here, art, culture, all these things are evolving every day. And so what I like about that is it's an expansive term in the sense that it will keep incorporating things. I would imagine it could last a good 20, 30 years potentially, and still capture all these different things. So it's interesting talking to people about it because it's semantics at some level and other things. I think your points are really valid, but I think, yes, we should remember this will be the department name. How we interpret it, how we reference it, is different in different contexts, and we can do that. It doesn't you can't, it's not like you can't use the word art.
Yeah, but like you were saying, to just overhead, name it that, but be able to paint a more descriptive picture with the programs and the wording and the language.
Absolutely.
I think that's really important.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's still at the core of what we do, so, but I do appreciate that. And I do think, one of the other things that art, people have so many different ideas as to what that is that it doesn't necessarily focus or target. It might open up more questions than answers, in the context that we're trying to do for the department is just to create that name and that image and deliver. This is what we, how we contribute to Lawrence's unmistakable identity. So.
And along those lines too, something that occurred to me too, and this could just be a me thing, but I don't think I'm alone in this, is when people say arts, you tend to think capital A arts. You're thinking of a symphony and a dedicated space. You're thinking of a painting or a sculpture and an art museum and stuff. But what about, say, a bluegrass scene in Lawrence, which is not institutionalized, formalized, that sort of thing, but it is a big part of a lot of people's lives, whether they participate in it or go to see these events, things just hang out in somebody's backyard, that sort of thing. And I think culture probably better encapsulates that, at least for me. Obviously, if I think about arts for more than 2 seconds, obviously all these other things fall into it, but that's the first thing that pops into my head is the fine arts or the high arts, or, the kind of weird dichotomy that kind of drilled into us at an early age,
D.W. Smith, yeah, I actually agree. I mean, hearing you talk about that really makes me think about the fact that, like, when you say prefer to arts, I feel like, at least for me and maybe for a lot of folks, you think about the output, the thing that is being created, the creative output, whereas culture really makes it more about the people in the community where that
lifestyle.
That art is,
arts,
which
is kind of a lifestyle for a lot of people.
Which I do appreciate. So,
and you know what, and kind of what I was saying, how Parks and Recreation, they're dependent. I don't know that art and culture are necessarily dependent, but art is part of the culture, right? Where these two are. So it kind of separates them, even distinguishes one between the other. If you use them both, you're saying, okay, these are two separate, two separate things that need to be analyzed separately, where really we're trying to say art is part of culture and what we're trying to portray for Lawrence. And I'm assuming all these questions will come up next Tuesday, so I appreciate them all now.
Yeah, sure.
Absolutely.
Daniel B. Smith, so we do we are looking to make a motion and get a second for us to give our recommendation that will then go on to the city commission, and they'll make the final decision about whether to get rid of LPRD and adopt the new shorter name. So unless there's further discussion.
I had a question about the presentation, but we can go ahead and do this first.
I mean, you could do the question first,
Okay.
maybe. I mean, the question could create more questions.
I had a question. It was like one of the last slides that Luis did before he turned it over to
Oh,
Porter.
okay.
It was like a survey with satisfaction.
Oh, that was Porter's.
It was something about
This one?
The one before it, I think.
Oh, okay.
Maybe the one before this. This one.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so there was something on there that said, how satisfied are you with the amount of arts cultural opportunities? And it seemed like the thing that struck me was the amount. And I wondered, is there a possibility to make that question about quality? like, it just seemed like a kind of a funny question to be asking people, like, how happy with how many things we're doing versus what we're doing. Like, are we doing the right things? Are these good things? Are they serving the community versus are we just doing a ton of stuff?
Right.
That's not impacting people.
I wasn't here when the,
Yeah, I can
Questions
speak to
came
this.
up,
Excellent point, and I don't disagree. I'm not defending this. But because I was immersed in the survey process, what I understand, this is terminology that is part of the survey methodology.
Okay.
Because the survey we did, which we may not use the same company and we are changing the survey, also compared us to other cities. And so that's the reasoning for, a lot of those questions were really awkward, frankly, in the same
Yeah.
sense that you're talking about it. But it was hard to use a word like quality because that's more subjective. So anyway, your point is well
Okay.
taken. I think there's room for improvement, but for now, that matches the survey question. And there is talk, because the strategic plan is now over 5 years old, about, it's never meant to be a fixed tool. And so it'll evolve. So I think we're actually looking at those kinds of things, of how do we actually re-articulate. So good point, and hopefully it makes sense why it's that way right now.
and to be honest, I've heard that answer 10 times and I couldn't come up with it. I couldn't remember it. That's the reason why that's stated in certain things.
Gotcha.
Again, because you're benchmarking against other cities.
Right.
Right. And then are we being emailed this? Is it in the agenda, like a link, this presentation?
Yeah,
Okay.
we were working on the presentation, and so I didn't want to put it into the
Yeah, as we're,
link,
Okay.
but I'll link it in the minutes and
Sweet.
stuff, so
Okay.
it'll be there.
All right, are there any other questions or discussion, or someone willing to make the motion?
I can make a motion to approve the name change.
Thank you, Marlo. Can I get a second?
I'll second.
All right, thank you, Alicia. We will now do the roll call vote, starting with Marlo,
Approve.
and then Alicia,
Approve.
and then Monique,
Approve.
and then Matthew.
Approve.
And I will also approve, passing unanimously. Thanks for the presentation. It was very, very thorough.
oh, thank you.
Yeah. I mean,
I need this feedback as well for next week, so I still have time to modify if I didn't, but I thank you.
yeah, it was great. I mean, ultimately, names are important and words are important, but yeah, I appreciate the sheer volume of information and thought that went into it.
Good, good. But I will say this is a response really to staff saying, what are we called? They need it.
Yeah.
It's
They need
it's as internal as it is external.
Yeah.
And it really, it's a great opportunity to kind of reboot into this new way of being, which we've done so much work on with the master plan. So yeah, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, we do have a couple more agenda items. Our second one is reviewing the 2020-25 Phoenix Awards nomination guidelines. This one, I believe, is going to get maybe.
The
Do you
wrong
need this?
thing. Yes, I do. Thank you. All right. So it occurred to me, and this is why I added this to the agenda. I just want to get it on your radar. We don't have to do any real formal, but if you guys are agreeable and it works, then you guys could actually approve it. Let me get rid of our PowerPoint here and go to the magic world of the interwebs and go to our agenda. So as most of you know, but maybe not everybody knows, the Phoenix Awards for many years was given annually. Nominations were submitted, and then there was an annual award ceremony. I took it over in 2015, 2016, and what we realized was that we'd kind of reached a saturation point. So it was really hard to get people to nominate because there weren't a lot of people to nominate. So, and also there was a budgetary challenge where we had $3,000 to, if we did both, then $3,000 was to pay the artist and to hold the ceremony, which I just decided that's not enough money for the artist. So the good news is we changed it to every other year. So we had $3,000 for the artist and then $3,000 for the program. Then after COVID with changes in budget, it actually grew. So then we had $6,000 and we still kept it to the every other year. So as you know, we selected the artist last year. He's already underway. And then we have $6,000 this year to do a really nice event. And that's actually, you all experienced that first First new Phoenix Award after COVID. Yeah, that was the
Wow.
first big one that we had done.
It was a lovely ceremony.
It really was. It was very
really was
nice.
nice.
Yeah, it was great to have everybody. So that's how this is working. And so anyway, with that, I realized, oh goodness, we have to think about nominations. And so if I go down to City Commission and we wait for the interwebs. And then go to our meeting. And then here. So this one is linked to the agenda. So I sat down and actually Tom Harper was asking me because he wanted to nominate somebody. So it got me thinking about it. So I appreciate that too. So 2025 will be the silver anniversary of the Phoenix Awards, which is pretty cool. And so I talk about the background of all that, and then all community members are warmly invited to submit nominations. I tried to make it a little more friendly, because it was kind of dry, and I realized that, so bringing it up to speed. And then I put this in, and this would be the biggest thing for you all to decide, is this appropriate? Adding to the excitement, in honor of the 25th anniversary of the Phoenix Award, the Lawrence Cultural Arts Commission, and I kept it at May, select a recipient for a special Phoenix Flame Award honoring a shining legacy in Lawrence's creative community. So if somebody rose above the other nominees, or there's somebody, from our perspective of legacy that hasn't been acknowledged appropriately, there's an opportunity to do that. But I didn't commit us to do that just in case we don't really find that individual. And so just join us in celebrating this. And then I put a date thinking we can open nominations, and I would think by May we would have enough, we would do a lot of marketing and, push this out. So I was thinking that at the May 14th Cultural Arts Commission, we could actually select that person and then still hold the event in the fall. So that was where everything was going. So, and then I kept it basically the same of, I also simplified it a little bit. So here's what we want from the nominee, and to name the nominator as well. And then, I'm trying to think where I put this. Sorry, I know, because I know that somewhere it actually asks for a resume, and I know personally that's sometimes hard to get secretly. So I tried to change that to, if it's just a list of their achievements.
Yeah, it looks like that's
Which,
under,
where did I,
3B.
thank you. So, or list of the nominees' achievements in the arts. So they can add it that way and not have to go dig up a resume and potentially ruin a surprise. And then just bring them to me or deliver them by email. So I try to simplify it as much as possible while we also glean the information we need to make good choices. And you all will be responsible to help us promote this, get it into all those communities that have been marginalized and other things, make sure we really, who's out there that we really need to know about.
I like all this. I was just kind of unsure about the silver nominee. Like, is that just to provide a platform for us to nominate someone who hasn't been nominated? Or are we saying this one has exalted the others? Like, I don't know, like that felt a little funny or something to that.
I was thinking exalted the others. Like this is a Lifetime Achievement Award, if you will,
I see.
maybe.
Okay.
Because when I go back and look at the list, which is on the website, you can see all these different people over there. It's pretty incredible. It really is. And it's not just who's been nominated and received the award, but it's also artists. And then I think about a Mary Doveton who's recently retired and who's had a huge impact. But I also am aware, and I think that's a valid point, is it appropriate
Right.
to point to one person above others? So maybe it's not the right thing. But then the question would be, is there another way of celebrating that 25th anniversary, perhaps?
What does everybody else think? I'm curious.
Dean Smith, I'm curious if you think us having the option to nominate somebody who we feel like was overlooked and should have been nominated,
I like that.
you think that's okay?
Yeah.
It's just not them being the the cut above sort of.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
Yeah, when I was looking at the list of nominees, I was like, I'm running out of ideas because name that popped in my head was like, oh, they got theirs back in 2007. They got theirs back in 96, and unless you're kind of double dipping and re-awarding somebody, I don't really see why, I don't see where the lifetime achievement kind of thing. I mean, in a lot of sense, the award is kind of a lifetime achievement for a lot of the people on that list,
Agreed.
They've been doing their thing in town for 20, 30 years and they're being recognized for it, so, yeah.
I have a question. Do they typically go to individuals, or how often are they awarded to groups?
Good question.
When I looked, it looked like it was mostly individuals, but not entirely, but I would
That's
say a
so-
strong majority.
So here's the list. Since the inception of the Phoenix Awards in 1996, more than 155 local artists, sculptors, photographers, dancers, musicians, vocalists, educators, writers, and literary supporters, administrators, organizations, and volunteers have been recognized by their peers and fellow Lawrencians. The list is below. There are 10 categories: arts advocate, administrator, educator, our education, design arts, literary arts, musical arts, performing arts, visual arts, volunteer in the arts, and the Phoenix Award for Exceptional Artistic Achievement. There's also, so we actually have that. So maybe I'm doubling efforts. There's also a Creative Spaces Award category, which recognizes outstanding achievement in imaginative and environmentally forward-thinking placemaking. So this goes back a ways, and it really aligns with our strategic plan in recognizing all these creative fields in addition to sustainability. So that's a really good question, and maybe it's not necessary. And then here's the past award winners going all the way back. Mary Doveton received an award back here. Ann Evans. How long was Ann at the, she was the director of the Art Center for
Yeah, till the early 2000s.
20 years?
Yeah.
My whole time growing up here.
Yeah.
My kids started preschool with her.
Lynn Green with Van Gogh. Louis Copt.
But yeah, not a lot of groups overall.
No, I think, I remember one year we had the, Committee on Imagination in place with that group. So anyway, so food for thought, I can take it out. The other thing I'm thinking is, and I know it's the next agenda item or the last one, do we want to maybe give this some time during the retreat? Because I don't think it has to be done now, but I wanted to get it in front of us to start thinking about it.
B. Smith, I feel like there's, at least, in the very least, there's no, giving us the option, not necessarily, exalted above all else, but giving us the option, if we feel like there's an obvious selection, somebody who's been in the community for a long time. I realize that there, most of the folks we think of maybe have received awards in the past. But if there's someone, maybe over the past year who has done some incredible work, and then we're kind of shocked when they don't get nominated, it's nice to at least give us the option, and especially having it be optional, having it be a may, that we could, throw someone's name in who wasn't nominated. I think it allows us to maybe account for some of the unpredictability of the nomination process. So, you can be an amazing artist who's done incredible things over the past year, and then everybody who is most likely to nominate you is just really busy, or they all think someone else is going to do it. Like, those things do happen. So I'm okay with us having the flexibility to nominate a person, but just in general, even, but I don't think it's, ultimately it doesn't seem like it's been necessary in the past, and yeah, I'm kind of either way on it.
I would be comfortable approving it with that, like we would nominate, but not the exalting to a different level.
Fair
And then,
enough.
and I think all the other changes that you pointed out, especially trying to like lower the barrier for nominating somebody,
Yeah.
seems great.
Definitely.
And I always appreciate you talking about marketing the nomination thing and also pointing out the fact that, you know, it's partially our role to spread that word. But hearing that Tom Harper is curious about nominating someone is also great
Yeah.
because he's really good at spreading awareness. Also, I don't think he's going to watch this later, but if he does, feel free to post about it on your Instagram account.
So if I'm, just to make sure I'm hearing you correctly, basically take this out, which is fine. Or do I need to reinterpret it, or do we just hold that you all could?
Yeah.
I like
So
that.
reinterpret it a little bit, just saying the Cultural Arts Commission may, but I won't shine as big a light on it, because it may or may not happen.
Because maybe it's a surprise.
Right, no, that's a good point too. Okay, I can do that, and I can bring it back to the retreat, just so we can go over it with the whole group again and make sure everybody's comfortable. So we can be finished with that at this point now.
So no motion needed. We do actually have, you mentioned the agenda for the January 12th retreat being the next thing, but we do have another item before that, which is securing a Cultural Arts Commission volunteer to serve on the Unmistakable Events Grant Program Review and Deliberations, which is our new TGT sort of replacement. I'm sure everybody watched the little conversation you had about it on the YouTube channel, but I assume, are you gonna go through that little PowerPoint?
No, I mean, I could if you want, but it's all here. And so with the board and commission restructuring, as you all know, the advisory board was dissolved. And so, but we still need to have a, transparent review process. So we are also a little bit behind because of that whole commission board change. So I made it more efficient in the sense that we're not doing the 3-minute presentations and all that stuff. But I do need somebody to score the applications and submit the scores, and then meet on January 3rd to deliberate about the grants and make a recommendation to the city commission. We're gonna have 7, possibly 8 people doing this process. I'm creating an ad hoc committee. Luis and I have been talking about it, trying to fit good representation, trying to get diversity. 7 people, it's hard to get a lot of diversity. And honestly, I kept a couple of people from the old advisory board just because they had that direct experience. So, and Tim Metz has done this historically for this board. But yeah, I need a volunteer that's willing. What I've tried to do is, I realize it's over the holidays, not the ideal time, but it does, the application closes tonight at 11 p.m. I will work diligently to get everything set up. All the applications can be assembled in an online form, so it's pretty easy, and then they're all standardized. So each grant application is the same structure, which makes it easier as a reviewer to kind of build a system and to go through this. And then I was going to show you, so the guidelines are here. That's what Daniel is referencing. This is the scoring rubric. So the scoring rubric has been updated to make sure this is based on conversations I've heard over the last couple of years about concerns about the grant program, transparency concerns, whether or not it's actually equitable. So it's really now very much aligned with each of the areas of our strategic plan. It actually points directly to the key performance indicator that is related to it. And then the scoring actually asks the proper question, and then each of the scores is 0 to 15 points, or 0 to 10, as you can see. So it's pretty in-depth, but it will give us a really good reflection, I believe, on different vantage points. We have to remember, this is not just arts and culture. It's also potentially sporting events. It's geared with a stronger eye toward economic development from that perspective, because it is transient guest tax dollars. So it is looking to try to reclaim some of those funds. Although there's also the balance, it's also about our unmistakable identity. And then we have the community arts grants, which will open on December 30th, and that's specifically for arts and culture projects, programs, that type of thing. So it's an interesting opportunity. You learn a lot. We've had a lot of response, and so I have already I think 34 applications in. While we were sitting on our meeting in the meeting today, because today's the deadline, so I just kept feeling my phone. I'm like, I know what that is. But that's great. We got the word out. I see some new events that I've never seen before, and that was part of it too, was, you know, not necessarily just focusing on the old tried and true, but how do we create opportunities? The challenge is, very honestly, it's competitive, because every single year we've done this in the community arts grants, we've had at least double the ask for the amount of money we have available, which is being conveyed to the city commission, because I know that would be, it's definitely arguable, is there a way to increase this funding? So that's in front of them as well. So anyway, that's the task at hand. I will put everything together in hopefully a very clear email, so it's clear what the responsibilities are. But as I said, it's reviewing these grants, filling in the score sheet, send the scores back to me before the first of the year, or right at, you know, it could be the second of the year, I guess, and I'll get it all together. Then I put it into a sheet that shows the standard deviation above and below, which color codes it, so that we would meet here, that committee, and discuss, you know, so if Alicia says, oh my gosh, I think I used this the other day, what did I have? Dog theater. You know, this, I know nobody's seen dog theater, it's new, but I really think it's a winner, we need to give it some money. You know, so she could argue it up or down. Somebody says, you know, they really aren't holding their own anymore, we need to push it down. So trying to allow some dialogue. I'm using extreme examples.
Oh, that's not on the table. That's not gonna happen then.
Well, I feel like this is keep being promised to me.
I mean, the
I
deadline
mean,
is,
I'm interested.
It's my secret attempt to create dog theater.
Okay, do you want to quickly, because I know the Parks Board asked the other day to see the questionnaire, the application.
Oh, right.
So they can see what they would, whoever volunteers would be.
Yeah, so here's this is the form that folks are filling out. It goes into the WordPress system, the event title, contact name, phone address, street address, and all this is organized pretty tidily in these PDFs as you get them. And then we have different background info. We try to capture everything up front, so that when an award occurs, we can share this information with Explore Lawrence, who can help with promoting it and marketing and all that, and we're tracking all this information. And so then a brief description of the event, and then is it in person, is it virtual, combination, the amount of TGT funding requested, and we try to make, you know, you can see these are pretty, doesn't take a lot to just click. What are the dates of the event? In the guidelines, we do tell people that if you can create an event, one is over the winter season, because you know, typically May starts a really busy season of events all the way through August. So looking at, are there other opportunities for doing something maybe in the winter? For hotel rooms, we heard this again today, you know, from, what is it, Tuesday, yeah, Sunday through Thursday, trying to fill hotel rooms to get that extra boost. And some of the applications are small conferences that are coming in as well. So that's part of the challenge, is balancing the unmistakable identity arts with the, is it going to book hotel rooms kind of thing. Not that they're mutually exclusive. I know Free State, I think, brings in a lot of, or includes a lot of hotel stays. So that's what it looks like, and it looks a little daunting, but it's fairly simple. And like I said, it creates a nice PDF that you can go through. You can sort it on the online form, so you can do it alphabetically, or you can do it as they came in, whatever's comfortable for you guys.
So what does it look like if somebody on this board wants to participate in a bigger entity going after this grant? Or these grant opportunities?
Say again.
One of these people working with a bigger entity to go after some of these grants. Is that
You mean
Has
it's like,
that been
like
done
a
before?
conflict of interest sort of
Yes.
situation?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
What does that look like?
Okay, sorry, I didn't understand.
Sorry, I probably
You
worded
asked
that
the
super.
question. Yeah, we're in a relatively small town. People wear more than one hat. So we do allow that, and then, but when that occurs, if they are on the panel, they do not participate in deliberations. And scoring is adapted. So if Alicia is doing dog theater, I have so much fun with this. And she competes and then is on it, then her scoring, she would not score it.
Okay.
We have an automatic scoring insert that's kind of a slightly above average, so it's fair, but she can't score
It
her own
keeps the
grant. And she
integrity.
can't, right,
Clear, okay.
right,
I love
exactly.
that.
So we avoid any conflict of interest in that sense.
Because I wear multiple hats, so I want to make sure that I'm not doing something that's,
And,
doesn't feel.
I would say if you're uncomfortable in any way or you feel like that's, awkward, then I respect that completely.
I'm going to take up all the space everybody will allow me to, but I want to do it with integrity and I
Yeah.
want to be transparent about
No,
it.
I
for
appreciate
sure.
that, yeah.
Dean B. Smith, I'll just say that it's, if that was if there was a situation where there's some sort of conflict of interest with, you're part of something that was gonna apply or has applied, it's not, like, if you have an issue with it, but by all means, like, feel free to like, not volunteer yourself, but it's not extreme, that abnormal. It does happen, and nobody will think it's weird,
Well, I
yeah.
mean, we're doing it.
We do not have to have somebody specifically identified at this meeting. I had a couple of questions. Obviously, with the 7 or 8 members, so I'm curious if have you identified specific. I mean, obviously, you're asking for a member of this body, and you have a member of.
So we have a member of this body, a member of the Parks and Recreation Board as well. We had a volunteer Monday night. And then we have representative from the hotel industry, representative from economic development. We're looking for sports, but that's kind of a broad stroke. And then I have somebody, just sort of a community at large member who actually was on the advisory board, was very enthusiastic, and then he only had one opportunity to do it before the board was dissolved, so said, hey, would you be willing? And he's like in there, so, which gives us some more youth perspective as well. Those are the primary categories. So yeah, the 2 boards, hotel, economic development, Explore Lawrence as well. So we'll have somebody from Explore Lawrence on this group as well.
The other question I want to ask, I might already know the answer to, but if someone's applying to this grant process, could they then turn around and apply for the same, with the community arts grants, there are events that people, put an application for. So is it one or the other is the question?
So we talked about this, and so last year there was some concern about one event getting 2 grants. So in order to adjust appropriately, what we decided was, one, we would run the TGT Unmistakable Events grant program staggered so that people would know if they were going to get that grant, and then if they didn't, they could conceivably seek a community arts grants, although it is a different structure. So basically, no, you can't go for the same, one event, one entity can't go for the same, both grants. But I want to be careful, and that's what was articulated in both sets of guidelines. If one group is doing an event, say, and wants to incorporate an arts component, then another entity, a nonprofit or other group or something, could then go for that other grant. And so you'd have 2 grants for the same event, but it would be for 2 different purposes. Does that make sense?
Dean B. Smith, well, I think it seems like a good idea to try and have, unless anybody wants to volunteer right now and commit, we could try and have that person selected at the January 12th
No.
retreat.
Too late.
Oh, is it? Oh, it is too late. Yeah.
We
So
need to do
okay.
this.
The 3rd
Yeah.
is the meeting.
Yeah, January 3rd will be the deliberation.
So then, I mean, obviously, if we're not going to have it decided in this meeting, would it be something where we could, if somebody wanted to reach out, and including our members who aren't here, wanted to reach out, by email to you and say, hey, I'm willing to do this, and we could reach consensus that way.
That
Yeah.
was my question about Tim, because I know that he enjoys
Yeah.
doing it, so I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I
if
thought he was
communicated.
gonna, but apparently he's not. So yes, that's fine. I could put out an email call. It doesn't have to be
All right.
voted on. It sounds like you're all amenable. That would be my ask, is you all are nodding, yes, it's okay to reach out to the commissioners and offer this via email. So Kelly and Tim would then be part of that. And I would just basically say whoever responds yay first gets the gig, if that works for everybody. And if any of you go, you're suddenly inspired, okay, if that's amenable to everybody,
I think that
Sounds
seems
good.
fine, yeah.
okay.
I was trying to segue. Okay, next thing on the agenda is the agenda for the January 12th retreat. Trying to develop some things there. This is also something which maybe there could be a little bit of communication over email to try and determine, but it would be nice to try, I guess, hammer out at least some of the basic bullet points there.
Yeah, do you want to reiterate, because you have a good memory we've talked about a
Items
variety of things.
from
We can
last-
only do so much, so I think that's the key. What are
Yeah.
the main areas? What I propose is we kind of build out a little outline tonight of what you all are thinking, and then Daniel and I, he as the chair, me as the liaison, can sit down and hammer that out and develop a realistic agenda.
Well, I will bring this up. I mentioned this at the beginning of the meeting, that I don't know how many of y'all remember, but last time we met, we talked about having some homework items, which kind of had to do with the transition from the old body to this new version of the Cultural Arts Commission. And there were 3 things last month that we all sort of left the room on our plate as something that we were supposed to kind of think about and maybe come up with some ideas. And they were looking over the mural review guidelines, which I learned this evening were created in 2015. So looking over the mural review guidelines, coming up with any ideas on how we want to adapt those. Technically, the mural review guidelines are the ones from the old commission, and we should have some for the new commission and make any adjustments we want there. The second item is, let me see, I do have a note card. The second item is, the mission for this body. It's a sentence, but I feel like it has quite a bit of room for adjustment. And then the last thing is the outdoor sculpture exhibition, the ODSE, which we then also refer to as the Temporary Public Art Exhibition, and essentially kind of in the same vein as Parks, Recreation, Arts, and Culture, having been Lawrence Public, the whole name change thing. We want to come up with a name for the outdoor downtown sculpture exhibition, which more encompasses the fact that it's not specifically necessarily outdoor, downtown, or sculpture. So 3 out of 4 is pretty bad as far as actually embodying what the ODSC is about. So those are the 3 things that we specifically identified last time as sort of homework assignments that we gave ourselves. So I think obviously those 3 things would be nice things to cover in the retreat, as sort of just making sure that all of our stuff is up to date with our the new version of this body.
I'm also looking at my notes, and one thing I had written down is something about reviewing the public art donation guidelines. That's all I wrote down. So.
Yeah.
So that's a thing.
That is another inherited or a sort of legacy
Right.
item, yeah.
Probably speaking out of, may I? Sure.
Unprompted, I'm wondering if the director of Parks, Recreation, and Culture has any input.
Well, what my thought is, because again, as I mentioned earlier, we hope that our master plan is going to be ready in early January. It would be great if this board could retreat post that master plan.
Well, that's a good point.
Oh, which is, what was it, this?
Well, middle of January, I think January 21st is when we're hoping to bring it to the commission. So it would be maybe.
This commission?
That commission. So yours would be the week before that, which is one thing that Porter will talk about, is the day that we hope to present it. But it would be great, otherwise we're looking at a full year before you can really, I guess you can take it on as the board, on your regular meetings, but
That's a
I
good
mean,
thought.
unless
I
there's
hadn't thought of that.
a reason to do it in January, if we can,
I think it's mostly tradition. It's the start of the year.
Oh.
That's sort of the philosophy. But I don't think delaying it a month would be
all the way to
harmful.
February.
What I like about that is when I see retreat, I do think more conceptual and idea sharing, where these things, the homework things we talked about, seem like a meeting. Like we can
Yeah,
do this in the
that's true.
public sphere and just
Yeah.
get it done in an hour. Where those more idea brainstorming sessions seems like 3 hours on a Sunday. Seems fun.
I also, I think
With some wine.
Monique, because we talked about, we have a budget which sort of references all of the programs that we do, right? Or that you do, sorry, I always include myself in. Because I'm so intimate with it. But, would we want to consider either different programs, or is the budget appropriate for the
Right.
programs the way it's, so that's a good conversation that can be
Yeah.
a broad stroke, but we just kind of put it on the table. So I'm going to add that to the list if that's amenable.
I love that.
I think the mission is really important, and I think Luis has really brought up a good point. Looking at the master plan, looking at the culture plan, taking all that information, really saying, okay, what is that mission statement? And we may not be able to create a new mission statement at the retreat, but come up with a plan. What are sort of the key elements that are important about that?
and you may be able to. You might
Yeah.
surprise yourself.
Okay. Do we want to determine a new date?
I mean, if we wanted to push back a month, we could just do our,
February 12th meeting to be a retreat,
But-
or turn it to a Sunday, right?
yeah, I think the Sunday with wine thing that Marlo suggested.
Oh, is that what it is?
It's much more relaxed. It would have to be public.
Yeah.
I mean, we have
Yeah,
to
for
broadcast
sure.
it,
Yes.
but, and we, yeah. But
not
no,
an
it's,
hour
it's,
day.
it's nice, what we've done is
Broadcasted.
gone to a different venue, and it can be more relaxed and, good conversation. Goodness. So what are you
Speaking of
saying?
banjos.
So with this, I'm thinking, okay, then you would have your January 8th meeting as usual. And then, but then in February, you'd cancel your 12th meeting.
So your meeting's on the 22nd, you said?
So here's the calendar. It's not in, so January 13th is the date, which is a Monday. That's the date that we have the consultants kind of in the bullpen to do the presentation to the commission. I'm sorry, if acceptable to you all, to this commission,
Sure.
to the board, to the advisory board for parks, as well as the steering committee that helped at the inception of the process. So that would cut out the need to do 3 presentations to 3 different organizations, and then to the commission on the 21st. So our hope was, and I think it actually might work better for you because it was January 13th, and you'd be having the retreat the day before. It would be a lot to ask, and not that it's going to be an extensively long time to, for them, but that would be a lot of hours dedicated to, to your volunteer hours here in a very short period of time. So that would be January 13th. The following week would be to the commission, or I guess the 13th. Yeah, 8 days later. So the following Tuesday would go to the commission. But I guess the question is, would you meet January 8th or January 8th and then the following?
I feel like it's a
Monday.
responsibility of the board to remain flexible for things like that.
Appreciate that.
So, Sunday the 26th, I guess, is a possibility, although I'm going to be out for the Kansas Recreation and Parks Association Conference. So then we get into February, and February has 4 Sundays, so February 2nd, 9th, 16th, or 23rd.
So
Or,
if we-
Saturdays are also possible.
if we did a Sunday retreat in early February, would we not do the regular meeting on the 12th?
Typically, we in lieu of, yeah.
Okay. What do you guys think of the 9th?
It works for me.
Works for me, I don't have any.
I will be out of town.
You are.
I'm a juror. I have to go give juror remarks.
Are you serious?
And
I'll
They
be
need
gone.
you.
I'll be coming back.
Well,
What,
That's the one day.
is Sunday a good day for you guys? Do you want to talk about a different Sunday?
Yeah.
I'm honestly a little bit more, more disposed or inclined to do a Saturday than a Sunday, but I
Okay.
feel like I'm probably the exception there. Obviously, we also have two folks who aren't here who could have all sorts of conflicts. But so ninth's out. Is that the only?
That's the only
that's the only
Sunday
one?
that I can think
I
of
would
right
pick
now.
that Sunday.
Other proposal, because we are missing two folks. Since this pushes it further out, I could do a doodle poll very easily and just at least get a
Yeah.
consensus of what seems to be the one or two best days, and then
For sure.
you could actually decide it in January at the 8th or before that. So if you want to do that, I'd
Yeah,
be
it seems
happy
like a
to
great
do that.
idea.
Okay.
Fair for everybody on the
I
board.
feel like every time we all pull out our phones and try and schedule something, it always ends up just being a waste
Mine,
of time.
mine is all written down. I'm one of those people, I have to see it.
But you knew that day.
I knew that day because I was just planning. I'll be gone that whole weekend.
So where are you going out of curiosity?
Well, I'm just gonna be in Salina, but I'll be there all day Saturday for their Sunflower Biennial. I'm
Yeah.
a juror at the moment.
Oh, cool. It's fun. It's always
That's what
fun.
that's what I was doing before.
I love
came here.
Salina. It's always fun to go out there. Okay, that works. Thank you all. And thank you, Luis. I didn't consider that, but I think that's a really good point.
Good,
And that way
thank
you
you.
all are working from
Glad you were here to-
the same resources, so. Cool.
Does that mean that the, looking over the mural review guidelines and the art donation guidelines, those are things that maybe we'd want to have, are more operational, that we maybe want to have just on our agenda for this next meeting?
For the 8th?
Yeah.
Can I make a
Yeah.
request
You may.
that we get a reminder on the 6th? If you haven't reviewed it, because I may forget.
Yeah, I think,
But no, that seems like a good meeting.
yeah, I agree. I
January, yeah.
think that's how we should spend.
So for January 6th, you're asking for,
January 6th or 8th?
sorry.
Well, maybe a request on the 6th for the meeting on the 8th.
Oh, sorry.
yes,
I
there you
got
go.
So January 8th, but you want a reminder, you mean more than my friendly reminder?
Well, maybe just like, if you have not reviewed these documents,
Okay.
get your butt
Yeah,
in here.
we put the.
Marlo.
Being
I
all
do it.
caps, with
Yes.
me a mean emoji.
Red font.
You promised.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, so, and what you want with that would be the public art donations guidelines and the
The mural review guidelines.
mural review guidelines.
And-
We could throw in the mission.
Well, I think to me, mission makes sense for retreat. I feel like it's. But the other thing that we discussed was changing the name for the outdoor downtown
Oh.
sculpture exhibition too.
That's probably good for January too, unless.
I think that's something we could.
Creative,
Yeah,
long-term space.
I think.
Well, and we could always, if it got challenging or taking up more time than we feel comfortable, you could bring it to the retreat or future meeting too, so you're not locked into.
I think we can come to consensus on a new name for the Lawrence Parks and Recreation Department at one meeting. I think we can do the outdoor downtown sculpture exhibition.
We just had to say yay or nay.
That's true. Yeah. We don't have to come up with ideas. You're right. It's tricky.
Well, we did wander down this road. I don't want to forget that. Alicia did such a great job when we did that. What was it? I can't even remember the name. What was the name of our
The crossing.
Oh, the art culture crossings.
art and culture crossings?
good.
So, we started to institute that. It hasn't stuck, so to speak, and it was kind of for a different program, but I was thinking that might give us something to think about.
Sure.
So I'll put all that together. Okay, good work.
All right, great. It is, let's see, it is 8:50. We do have a miscellaneous section. That's the end of our agenda items. We do have our wonderful miscellaneous section in case anybody wants to shout out a cool art and cultural thing they've been to recently or something that they want to mention that's coming up. I'll kick things off because I cannot go to it. I actually have a show this Friday in Kansas City, so I won't be here. But my friend Austin Snell has a movie, and it's going to be playing at Liberty Hall, and I'm going to be missing it. And I'm kind of bummed about that. So if anyone else wants to go see a cool local film, It's an interesting.
Austin Snell?
Yeah.
What's the name of the movie?
Oh, you're gonna put me on
Oh,
the
okay.
spot.
No, don't do that.
Email it to us.
Yeah.
I think Adam Jeffers did the poster for it.
Okay.
It's hanging up in Liberty Hall's window right now. So
Okay.
the floor is open if anybody else has anything.
The Nutcracker is this weekend. It is all sold out, but it is like the most magical show. It's wonderful. And then Friday night is the closing for the 8x8 show at the Art Center from 5 to 8 p.m.
There it is. They call her Death. 7:30 p.m.
Teaser.
Can you give just a brief summary of the Nutcracker for Luis's edification?
Yes, please.
The Kansas Nutcracker. So it is a holiday tradition from the Art Center, all ages, set in the Civil War times. So not your traditional Nutcracker. It goes through history. John Brown and his family are in it. It is just delightful. Dance, projections, snow coming down. It is lovely. Masks by artist Kent Smith. Did these 3D masks of the mice. And it's just gorgeous. So.
And written by Rick Averill?
Rick Averill,
Yeah.
yes, did the original conception.
So Rick
setting in
was the
Kansas.
theater guru, I will say, at Theater Lawrence, at the Art Center for
Yeah.
how many years? A long time.
He's
And
still
he
artistic director
dabbles.
emeritus.
Yeah.
So he's for life.
So
He
Yeah.
it's a
started this company
very,
at the same time the Art Center started in the 70s, I think, and he's
Yeah.
been doing that forever.
Yep.
And it's one performance?
It's from Thursday
Oh.
through Sunday, but it's all sold out.
Oh, okay, you did mention that.
I do believe actually Thursday is dress rehearsal. There may be some tickets left for the dress rehearsal.
Wow.
So, yeah. But it's
wink,
a good
wink,
run.
nudge, nudge.
Yes.
It's either this year or next year or the future. It's worth seeing.
It
It's
is.
really
It's
it's
really
really
special.
delightful.
One is this Saturday is KU Spencer's very first native fashion show. That's going to be something really, really special. And I think that, it's also sold out, but, some people don't show up. So there will be room for people for standing room. And also at the end of the month, on the 21st and the 22nd, is the second annual Inclusive Winter Market. And there has been a lot of, it's going to be really exciting, and you guys should come.
Where is this?
It's at the Lead Center.
Okay, that's at the Lead.
We're gonna have Sandy Claus there, of course, because you gotta have that. But it'll highlight a lot of local businesses, services. I focused on only having actual makers in the space, so no MLMs and no third-party creations to be resold.
Oh, wow, good for you.
So it's been very, very specifically, mindfully articulated to encompass our entrepreneurs, and with this event, I'm also hosting workshops for that. So I am creating hopefully can be a repetitive event in the wintertime that supports our local economy and also gives them tangible support to use throughout the year.
When you said inclusive, what is that?
So I am kind of newish to town, and I've been involved in a lot of things, and I've been really excited to be involved in, different pop-ups and art venues and stuff. But when I started working specifically with the Indigenous community, I only saw that Indigenous artists were only being viewed at like the KU powwow or the Haskell Indigenous Art Market or, very niche spaces. So I helped develop the Indigenous Community Center, which centered Indigenous artists, and I went around town and asked small businesses and places, hey, can we pop up here? Can we, just take up space? And that's how I got into that. Further down the road, I realized that a lot of events don't have the faceted kind of faces that I want to see. And I don't mean like faces as in like that kind of inclusiveness. I mean also to include people that are disabled, also to include our elderly community, also to include our youths. I have my youngest entrepreneur is 11-year-old who is an amazing artist, and like I want to help raise her up. So I'm very, very intentional with the people that I bring into the space. They're not going to be, a lot of them have dubbed themselves Art in the Park rejects. So very, very, broad spectrum of art that is very niche and deep in the community that doesn't always get space, accessible space, high traffic space, high visible space. So that's what these markets are really encompassing, is creating a very specifically inclusive, diverse market.
And if I may, and I'm asking, there's a professional development aspect of that where they have that experience. They may not even feel comfortable, competing for something else, but hopefully through this experience, because my secret agenda here, we're also trying to pull our events up a little higher, more to the maker side. And we would love to talk to you about any of the folks that are in the inclusive market, encouraging them to
Well,
apply
I started
for our
hosting
events.
roundtables bi-weekly that specifically cater to arts, small business, health, like homeopathic type businesses, to help them be sustainable in a way other than the systematic ideas we think of as approaching business. As we know, it's really important to build reciprocity with our community and other spaces and learn how to work within those lower networks to just build a stronger, tight-knit foundation to where artists feel comfortable coming to ask for help with how do you do taxes? How do I get an EIN number? Like really simple things that a lot of artists have no idea how to do. They have no idea how to approach it, how to access it. A lot of people don't think, well, I'm not really a business, I can't approach the SBDC. So I'm really trying to create a link that will, funnel those people to the SBDC or, the different entities that can help them. But I want to, and have been, taking up space by creating a platform that arms them with a little bit more confidence and knowledge. And so
That's great.
Artists that attended last year, over this 1 year of growth through the support that I've given them and the resources I've given them, have amplified their businesses. One of my artists even quit her day job
Wow.
because she was able to sustain with, her hustle's mad, like you gotta have hustle, but
Right.
she's just been taking it all and running with it.
Cool.
Yeah, so please come.
Yeah.
It's gonna be a grand time.
I'll just say on top of all that, as someone who's attended it, it's really enjoyable thing to also just go to, on top of all of the like deeper, more impactful
Yeah,
stuff.
and it's not just about coming to spend money.
It's a great event.
Yeah, it's a very
Very
family-centered.
important. Will there still be an Indian taco option?
You know it. I have even more indigenous food vendors there to complement each other. We're not competing at all. And oh my God, I'm really excited.
Very cool. I'm excited too. I loved it last year, but this sounds
Yay.
like that you've been able to take
I have
it.
a lot more elite in it this time. Like last year, I
Right.
didn't. So it's been exciting.
Cool.
Do we have anything else? It's okay if there's not. As it is almost 9, we're just on the precipice of 9 here. So as always, I will request a motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Nice.
adjourn. Okay.
I second.
Okay, Marlo has motioned, Monique has seconded, and we are doing roll call for adjournment now. So I'll start with Marlo,
Adjourn.
and then Alicia.
Adjourned?
Oh, approved.
Approved? I'm like, I'm like, adjourned. Approved?
And then Monique, and
Adjourn.
then Matthew.
Approve and adjourn.
And I will also approve the passes unanimously. Thank you, Porter. Thank you, Louise, for joining us.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Kurt, in the corner.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you, everybody, all of our volunteer leadership. See.
Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Quicker.
I know.
Okay. Did you get